Wow, what was that? We are live early. Something just happened. My video just went to static in the middle of my intro video, so I had to turn it off. So, welcome to Tuesdays Live here in the studio. My name is Keith. Let me know if the audio is great. That was shocking. All of a sudden, that's why you monitor your audio in your studio. All of a sudden, there's horrible static. I'm not sure what's causing that. Let's just grab the headphones and figure out what's going on. Testing 1, 2. So my microphone sounds good. That was crazy. So welcome to tonight's live stream. My name is Keith. This is Life Journey Production Studios. Tonight we're going to do 3 things as usual. I want to try to slow down a little bit and breathe tonight. I had a very, very busy weekend, as well as Monday, drove all the way about 5 hours away to attend a memorial service and a graveside for someone who made a major impact in my life when I was in another job up in Newport, Washington, north of Spokane. And so the family invited me to come. I got a chance to share and got a chance to MC the memorial. And it was quite an honor. So today I want to cover 3 things. I share that because I'm going to show you a picture later and tell you a story. So FYI, if you're watching this recorded, just make sure that you stay with me or you'll not understand why I shared where I was yesterday. So 5 hours there on Sunday afternoon, 5 hours back yesterday. Hit traffic both ways, a fire on the way up. Outside of Seattle and Everett, kind of that area, and there was a fire right side of the highway, we were trying to get from one highway to another, and it slowed down all the traffic. It was crazy. And then coming home, a major wreck, semi flipped over on Snoqualmie Pass, just over the pass, and I think I was in traffic for an hour on the pass, so it was quite an incredible journey. But let's talk about tonight's journey, where we're going to go. This is Life Journey Productions, and you're in a journey as well. Probably you might be a YouTuber, a live streamer. Maybe you are just learning about the tech and you're doing your research here on YouTube. That's what the channel is all about, is educating on the things that I'm using. And you saw my overhead view during the intro reel where you actually have my Skycam. That's my camera number 3 right here. So that's the Skycam, and so I could cut to that and show you my desk. Again, that's a Canon 5D Mark III, and they time out after 30 minutes. So I will have to reset that before we get off the air tonight. So we're going to do a Q&A on the Blackmagic Design Extreme ISO, which I have here in the studio. I'll fire up my mobile phone camera so that you guys can see it. Also, I have set up a macro created to be able to show that and me in a picture-in-picture, which is something you can do in the ATEM Mini Pro, the ATEM Mini Pro ISO. You can also do it in the ATEM Mini. So in the next few weeks, I am going to be setting up some of those layouts just because I am a huge fan still of the ATEM Mini Pro. I have one. I still use it. I may talk about that later because I am going to make some changes here in the studio in the weeks to come. I have some parts and pieces that we're going to also talk about tonight. So get your questions ready for the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO. The only major difference between the Extreme and the Extreme ISO is what it can record. All the other features are identical. How many USB-C ports, how many inputs, how many HDMI outputs, how it records the program. That's identical between the 2 devices. The ISO will record every single input, including it'll put everything into a file for you, as well as your media player, your pool, so that you can do some edits later. And if you want to use the XML file that it creates, you can bring that into the free version of DaVinci Resolve or the paid version and do a complete re-edit if you wanted to. So that's pretty incredible. I'm going to actually hit record right now And now I'm recording all of the ISO tracks. Now, typically I just go with the recording here on YouTube, and rarely do I have to make any edits. Occasionally something happens, like a number of weeks ago when I had Adam Tao on. And so I typically don't need those files, but I am recording now, so I can record from that moment. So not only are we gonna look at the extreme ISO tonight, I also want to look at the parts and pieces that you need to put or to install a Hyperdeck. So it doesn't matter if you buy a Hyperdeck Mini, one of the used ones that are going to be out there as the new Studio HD Plus comes out, which is the new version of the Hyperdeck that has some really cool features. I'm still waiting for mine. It's sad I don't get any information from the dev store other than rumors that it might be clear in October, which breaks my heart because I was planning on doing my new series on that deck. So we're going to look at what it takes to hook one up. That'll apply to the new HD Plus, Studio HD Plus, or it'll apply to all the Hyperdecks that have been out. If you really want to hook it up and get the full advantage, you're going to need these parts and pieces. So we're going to look at that. I also want to talk about ND filters, not real long tonight, but we're going to start there. But this is a variable ND filter, and these are designed to, you can use like a square ND filter if you have like a light box on your camera. Maybe you have a camera rig or a shoulder rig and you have bought that. So I paid $150 or so for this ND variable filter. And a variable filter means that you can change between like one stop of ND filter all the way up to 3 or 4 or 5 stops, depending on which variable ND filter you have. But this one had a little mishap. That's right. Take a look at that. It got rocked. So what I was doing is I was getting some footage ready last week for a video that I want to do on the do-it-yourself waterfall / fountain that I created for my backyard, a place for me just to go and spend some time, even though we've had fires, so it's too smoky outside right now to go out. Fires all over the Northwest. Also, we had a heat wave, so it was really hot to be outside. So I'm looking forward to August turning into one of those days where I can go out there and read and just enjoy that. So I was taking pictures. I had a lawn chair out on my grass, and I was doing some photographs where I wanted to get the water to have that silky smooth look. And if it's daylight, if you don't stop down the light, you can't get the exposure that you want or shutter speed that you want to create this effect. The way you create that effect where the water turns all milky, you can do this with oceans. You can do it with other things besides that. You can even do it with light to get those light trails. But I was trying to get this milky smooth waterfall action. I wanted to do it both in video and as well as some photographs. And so I set up the tripod, set up my EOS R, my newest camera, and I had this filter on. It's designed to go to my biggest lens or my widest aperture lens. And so I have some step down filters, and we'll talk about those in the future. But all they do is they adapt this lens down so that I can use it with some of my other lenses. So if you have a lens that might be a 77 mil, it might be an 82 mil, it might even be down in the 50s or the 40s if you have like a micro 4/3 camera, like some of the older Sonys, older Canons, the Rebel and all that stuff. So you need to adapt this down to fit every lenses. And so you want to have one big enough for your biggest lens so that you can just stop it down. So it screws on the back right here, and then it steps it down to a different size, and then you screw that on your camera. Well, I had this on my camera. I had my lawn chair, and this lawn chair has a barrel bottom to it. And I didn't realize that I had my tripod like in a 3-leg stance, 2 legs forward and 1 leg back, because I wanted the stability in case I leaned into it, it wouldn't accidentally fall over. The back leg, somehow as I pulled that tripod next to me, it got underneath or got between the front of that round deal and inside. And so I wanted to get up and make some changes. And I stood up, and as I stood up, the chair went back, hit the leg, and the whole thing went forward. And as you know, one of the reasons why people recommend that you have like a UV filter on the front of your lens is to protect it. And so typically those are anywhere from $20 to $50, $60 for a really nice one. But this variable ND filter, which was on, and I always take my UV filter off when I use my ND variable filter. And I have another set I'll bring out one time in the future. It's a lease set. It's for landscape photography. You can use it for other type photography as well. And it uses the square filters. And I have variable filters. I have really high-end filters that go in that. But I wanted to just simply get some waterfall footage. It fell over. I shouted out loud, and this was the result. So $150 gone. The good news is it protected my camera. It protected my lens. The lens I had on was my 24 to 70. It's a 2.8 Canon L lens. It's not cheap. Version 2, and that would have been very, very expensive. Also, if it had damaged my camera. So this filter took all the damage, and I'm very thankful. So ND filters are designed to stop down the light. So you can think of them like sunglasses, not like polarizers. We'll talk about those in a minute. But an ND filter literally is just to stop down the light, which means that you just want to decrease the light, because on the sun, I can't turn it up or down. In the studio, I can turn my lights up or down. If I have a flash, I can change the power. But when I'm actually working with broad daylight and I'm at a waterfall and I'm shooting in the middle of the day, I can wait for the sun to start going down. I can get there earlier in the morning where there's lots of shade. But if you want to create your own shade and have it pure stops of light, then you need a ND filter. And you can get these as single ND filters or a variable. And a variable basically has an adjustment in it, and it gets darker and lighter. I don't know if you guys can see this at all. If it's still getting darker and lighter, yeah, it is. So as I do this, it's getting darker and lighter. And then actually, if you go too far, it creates like an X across this. The really expensive ones, $250, $300, don't even have the ability to go past the normal stops of light. This one I can go all the way around. So you really have to use the guide. And on this one, there's a dot on one piece. See if I can show you guys this. There's a dot right here on the lower piece that turns, and then marks dots up here, and you line those up to stop down the filter. So this one got damaged, but that's what an ND filter does. Would you use an ND filter inside a studio? You would probably not use an ND filter inside the studio. There's really, typically you have the ability to control your light, but you don't have the ability to control glare, right? So if you have a TV or a monitor behind you, how are you going to control that glare? Or if you had some harder lights like I do here at the desk, these are my Elgato key lights, and it can be a little hard because they're only about this wide. And so that's the surface. So the smaller the light, and the less filter on it, and these have built-in filters on them, so it helps make the light wider, right? If you just have LEDs, those little LEDs can create hard shadows, but if you have some filter in front of it, or a softbox, like this is my softbox for my big Elgato lights, and this makes that small light very big, because the light fits right here, and the LED element is even smaller. So how do you make that small light not super hard? You run it through a softbox, and then you use a grid to control the light, because a grid keeps the light from spilling all over the room. So softboxes can help you soften the light. These softboxes can help you create bigger light. So with a big umbrella, when you shoot a flash into an umbrella, or a regular light that's just like the ones I have in the studio that stay on all the time, that umbrella now creates this big, wide, soft light, and it looks very beautiful. So what do you do about glare? Glare on water, glare on leaves. That's when you use a polarizer, and polarizers we are very familiar with, because that's typically what you're going to get in sunglasses. Different values, different tints of color. Sometimes it makes things more green. It really affects the color. But a really good polarizer doesn't affect color. All it does is cut down the glare. I actually use a polarizer in the studio. That's right. On this lens, I have a polarizer. Watch the TV behind me. See that? This is a polarizer, and what it does is it creates more and less polarizing as you turn it. It turns very similar to this one. And you can get a polarizer as just one solid piece that you put over your camera, but usually they are variable polar filters, or they just have a variable adjustment to them, and you can get more or less. So I love it because then I can create that TV a little crisp in the back, but I also can cut down on some of the glare on my glasses. And so that's how I help control these lights that are right here above my camera, is I use a polarizer. So if you have any questions about polarizers or ND filters, please let me know tonight. Let me just say hi to the people here in the chat. We've got Indy with me, Camille, Baxton, thanks for joining me. Cool, we'll talk about your Hyperdeck, but she says she received her Hyperdeck Studio today, but didn't unbox it, sent it back. I've got also an extreme ISO, so not much benefit to justify the price. Wow, did you send back your HD Plus? That's an interesting thing. I'd like to know more. So again, Freddie, I welcomed you back. It's good to have you back. Indy, it's good to have you here. Camille, hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's good to have you here. And hopefully more people will join us here live. So that's kind of the conversation about ND filters and polarizers. I don't want to spend a ton of our time tonight. I want to have plenty of time to talk about the extreme ISO tonight and answer your questions. But let's shift gears here real quick. I did get in the mail this week another Manfrotto Super Clamp. I'm going to bring a green screen into the studio just for demo purposes so that we can use it in the middle of, I'm unboxing, use it in the middle of one of our lives. And so I ordered this kit. It comes with this little adapter. On one side, it has the hookup to hook into the bottom of a camera. And then on the other side, it has the little peg here. I forget what these are called, but they'll pop right here in the slot. You've got to loosen up this screw. Wrong way. This is used to tighten it up to make sure things don't fall down. And I use those on the lights behind me. I'll show you guys those in a second here. So it slips in like that, and out, and you got to hold down the button. There's a spring-loaded button right here. See that right there? And then this pops in there. And I use these with friction arms. I use these with camera plates. My cameras are on friction arms, and I've showed them here before on the channel. I have videos here on the channel, so check those out. But I wanted you guys to see this unboxing, and then this is designed to clamp right out of the box on a pole. And you can see it's got this rounded edge, but what if you want to put it on the desk? It comes with this little bracket right here that pops off, just like that. And you just snap this in right here. And again, I've done a demo on these before, and now it makes it square. And now I can clamp this on the desk. Well, I'm going to use this to hang my green screen. So I have one more piece that's on its way. It's a pole that you can make different lengths or widths of it, or lengths of it really, and it just holds the paper up. And then that is going to sit on these. I have two of these, and I already have an extra Manfrotto Super Clamp. And so these just slip in the same notch, right like this. And then you tighten it down. And now if I was to hang this on a pole this way, I can just set the paper bar across on two of these, or because I use my auto pole too up there, let me let you guys see that. So softbox is in the way, but if you look right over my head, you can see the auto pole going across the studio here, and that's the best view I have tonight of that. Change this camera back. So then you could turn it the other way, go this route, which is how I'm going to use it, and then this is going to clamp up on my pole above my head, and it doesn't exactly go straight, which is one of my frustrations with these brackets. I didn't know that when I got them. You need something where you can turn these brackets because they're going to be at an angle, but all I need is to be able to set that bar on there to hold it. and that's what I'm going to do. I may get different clamps, but we'll see. So that's just one thing. Again, I have 2 of these. I already have an extra Manfrotto. This is what's going to hold the green fabric up, and then we can talk about using the keying feature inside the ATEM Mini Extreme to be able to key out the background so that I can put whatever I want behind me. I'm also looking at the new Unreal Engine 5. That's what they use to design a lot of 3D games on, and I may design a background behind me. And who knows, I may even try to figure out how I can have the camera move and have the background behind me move, because that technology is available for every one of us. And so we'll take a look at that. If I did that, I would put my camera in a live on a slider. The camera the slider would be sending or my camera would be sending a signal to the software on my PC, and then going back to a monitor so that I could see it or you could see it, and then I would be able to broadcast that live. As that slider moves, the background will move too, because typically if you have a live background, you're moving, it's moving behind you, but if a slider moves and it only changes the view on you, right, and the background doesn't move, it doesn't really look 3D. It's very 2D, and I want to be able to actually do that 3D movement. And the reason I want to play with the engine is that if I do some kind of project where I just want to add motion to a still shot, then I want to be able to create a background for a client and be able to make this work. And so all the action will be taking place on a green screen, but I can live key out the green so that you don't see the green in the background, and then I can lay over this background again. You can do that right in a extreme ISO. You can do it with an ATEM Mini or a Pro ISO as well. So, and you can do it with all the other Hyperdecks, all the other switchers that are available by Blackmagic Design and either other manufacturers, as long as you have the ability to do the keying. And that is chroma keying, and you can see that in your keys. So if you have an ATEM Mini or an ATEM Mini Pro or an ATEM Mini Pro ISO, you have one upstream key, and it has the ability to do chroma. I have 4 upstream keys in my Extreme ISO, just like you would if you had an Extreme. And so all 4 of those could be a separate chroma key. So I could have 4 guests with 4 green screens, and I could key out the green, and I actually could just have whatever I wanted background behind them, only if I have the extra ability inside my software to be able to also display that picture in the background. And there is some limits to that in the Extreme, and we'll talk about that in that live show. Not going to cover that today. So that's what's coming. Then talk about the Hyperdeck real quickly. You also have to use a Hyperdeck with a ATEM Mini Pro ISO, Extreme ISO. You have to be able to take the HDMI signal that comes into your switchers, and you have to convert the SDI that comes out of the Hyperdecks. Now, I understand that the Hyperdeck, also the Studio Plus, HD Plus, they have a HDMI out, but that doesn't give you the ability to key out for pre-multiplied keys. So you have to have 2 outputs coming out of your Hyperdeck. So there's an SDI fill and SDI key. So what those really are, the fill is the image, which you see on the screen. And if this was a pre-multiplied graphic, which I've talked about before, I have another video that I'm getting ready to edit this week that's coming out to give you some real looks at this even up closer, more thorough, how to set it up and how to create those graphics again. And I do have that training in the Hyperdeck series Mini already on my channel, so you can check that out. But I want to do another one, and then I'm going to show clips of that in our live as well. So this is not pre-multiplied, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But if I wanted to have a pre-multiplied transparent graphic, then I have to have that second channel coming out of my Hyperdeck, and I would only do that with motion graphics. I don't have to do pre-multiplied still graphics in my Hyperdeck unless there was a reason I needed one more input for some high-tech display I was trying to do, and I need to get one more graphic on the screen. then I could do a still image in my Hyperdeck that just repeats, but it doesn't move. And that would give me the ability to bring in another pre-multiplied lower thirds if I wanted to, and it doesn't have to have any animation. But usually I use my Hyperdeck for my intro videos, other videos I want to play live, as well as I use it to bring in motion graphics, and we're going to look at a motion graphic later tonight. But so you need these. I already took them out of the box. They can come with a power supply or not. You can power these SDI to HDMI 3G converters from Blackmagic Design with a USB-C cable. And so you do that right here. So the HDMI comes out this end, and then you have SDI in that end, and you also have SDI out. So if you had a little monitor that has an SDI input, then you could put the SDI in from the Hyperdeck, and you would need a cable like this, and I'm trying out these little cables. So I'll unbag this right now live. I got these because they're really short, and I have a really short distance I have planned for my new Hyperdeck when it gets here. I already have 2 of these on my desk, but I got these. They're very small, and you need 1 of these for each one of these converters. And then, like I said, this would come out of the Hyperdeck, and then I got these HDMI cables. They're rated to 8K. I don't need 8K, but you would take these out of the box, obviously. So I'm going to pull this out of here real quick. I bought these because they're very short. Again, having this cable and this cable, I don't need to go very far. So the HDMI would plug in right here, right? And so that's what you're doing. You're coming out of the Hyperdeck, and you got to do this twice out of the key and the fill channel. And if you look at the back of a Hyperdeck Mini or the Studio HD Plus or any of the other versions except for the new, smaller HD Hyperdeck, it does not have a key channel in the back. It only has an SDI out for the main fill channel, but it doesn't have a key, but all the other decks do. So you'd have 1 of these for each one of those SDI outs. And then again, I bought 2 of these, so not that I'm going to loop out of it, but to illustrate how you would loop out of this converter. Garbage everywhere now. Then you would just loop to your monitor. So let's say you're doing a live event, you're using your Hyperdeck, and you want to monitor directly out of the Hyperdeck. You would just choose 1 of these channels to be able to see the graphic. You wouldn't do it out of both. You would just send the fill channel to your monitor, and now that monitor would be Hyperdeck only. Now I do that in my studio. In my monitor, I have the ability to do 4 inputs. In fact, I'm going to change the 4th input, which is my PC in my studio, and I'm going to have an A/B switch so that I can literally add in the new Hyperdeck that's coming, so that now I can see my Hyperdeck Mini, which I've had in the studio now for, I think, almost a year. But I'll also be able to see my new Hyperdeck HD or Hyperdeck Studio HD Plus, and I'll have to convert the DisplayPort signal that goes into my my monitor, because it has 2 HDMI inputs. It has a Thunderbolt input, and it has a DisplayPort. I'm gonna have to convert the DisplayPort to HDMI. And then I'll use the HDMI out of my new Hyperdeck Studio HD Plus so that I can monitor it. And remember, it has 2 HDMI outs. So I'm going to take 1 of those and, I'm going to take, it has 1 HDMI out. Sorry, it has also an HDMI input. I'm going to take that HDMI out and I'll convert it, and then I'll be able to plug this DisplayPort into my monitor. And so I'll have 2 now sections inside my my monitor that will show me the Hyperdecks that I have in my studio, because I do want to monitor them. They have little displays on front, but you can't really see any details. And with the new monitor feature that comes on the new Hyperdecks, you can actually see the data on the screen as well. And so I definitely are going to want to see that when I'm doing a live event. So that's coming right here. So that's exciting. So I got 2 of these cables, so I can hook up 2 of these. I have 2 converters. Here's one in the box. I'll take it out. I only saved these boxes tonight. And again, you can buy these converters with a power supply, or you can save some money and you buy them without it, and you'll have to be able to plug a USB power source into these. And I have a power strip below my desk that has a bunch of USB ports, and so I'll just take a USB cable right from that right into the back of these because I use these in the studio. So I have two of these. Here's one all hooked up. We'll take off this. So I'll have one like this and then another one like that. So this will go in the SDI in. Open up this other HDMI cable. Gonna start throwing this stuff away. And just keep take the ends off. So this is what it's gonna look like. So now that takes care of getting it from the Hyperdeck into 2 channels in your mixer. So if you have an ATEM Mini, you're gonna have to take up 2 channels. Usually people use 3 and 4, save 1 and 2 for camera inputs. Maybe one camera is one input's your camera. The second one might be your desktop or another camera. You can also bring another input into the Hyperdeck. So when you're not showing a video, you can switch to record and come right through the fill channel on one of these. And I have a video on that and tips and tricks on the Hyperdeck on my channel as well. So that takes care of that. And then you would need, obviously, another HDMI cable to come out of the back of the Hyperdeck to monitor. So into a monitor, or like I said, you could loop out, if you have an SDI input on a monitor, then you could do SDI, or you could use HDMI if you have a monitor that is HDMI. And again, you're gonna want to monitor your Hyperdeck most likely and not just use the tiny screen. And again, I'm not sharing all this stuff, guys, tonight to tell you that you gotta go out and buy a Hyperdeck, the new HD Plus, the Studio HD Plus, because you could buy a used Mini pretty soon all over the world, because people are going to be selling them. I'm keeping mine. I'll still use it inside the studio. I have a reason for that. So I'm going to have both of them going, which means that I'm going to be using most likely at times 4 inputs in my extreme ISO. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. So that would leave me 4 for cameras or desktops or multi-view for training. And then if I wanted to use 2 Hyperdecks in my studio, literally I would have to, and if I was using it at the same time, I would have to either switch them between the 2 by using a 4 input and 2 output switch, or if I'm using them at the same time, I'm gonna have to take up again 4 channels in my extreme ISO from Blackmagic Design, which is crazy when you think about it. So I'm still waiting for one piece of the equation. That's the Hyperdeck itself, the new one that's coming in. And I'm very excited about that arriving so that I can share all that with you guys. So let me look here again on the chat. Are there any questions so far about the polarizers, the ND filter, or the things that you need to buy to get a Hyperdeck all ready to go? And I'd love to answer those questions tonight before we move on. Let me see if Matt Simpson, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you joining us tonight. So let's just go through here real quickly on my phone, looking at the chat. So let's go back here at the very beginning. Thank you, Indy. Hairstyle. It's pretty much the same hairstyle. I did get a haircut because I said I spoke yesterday. So thank you for that compliment. Let's go here. Thanks for saying hi, Indy, friends and family. Good to see you too, Freddie, and good to know that you were loving the little sky cam in the middle of our intro video. Again, I'm not sure what happened with the audio, why things went crazy. Yeah, it did sound like your TV, I'm sure. The static. I don't get that kind of static on my TV, but I've heard that static before when I was a kid. Audio is excellent. Thank you. I should have looked at that earlier. Thank you, Indy. So the live view in the waiting room, Freddie, what I did is I have my Skycam And I had to turn it back on because, again, that's my Canon 5D Mark III, and it'll only stay on for 29, almost 30 minutes, and then it times out. And so I can look on my live view, and it's right here. So you can barely see that. Let me move this over just a touch. So this is the Skycam. It comes into channel 3 in my ATEM Mini Extreme ISO. And then here's camera 1, which I'm not using, but I can switch to camera 1. That's this view. And so I can also switch to Skycam. That's input number 3. And I'm just hitting the auto button right here. And you guys can't see that yet, but you'll be able to see that here in a minute. That's on my Extreme. So the way I did that is I used the DVE. And you, again, if you buy an ATEM Mini, or you buy an ATEM Mini Pro, or you buy an ATEM Mini ISO, Pro ISO, you'll have one upstream key. And one of the things that you have in that, and I'll show you that in a little bit, you have the ability to do what we call picture-in-picture. So what I did is I popped up just the picture-in-picture on the screen right over my intro video. So my Hyperdeck is playing my intro. I brought on key number 4 in my software, and that was set, that key number 4, because I have 4 upstream keys. You would use upstream key 1, and that means that you wouldn't be able to do a graphic like this. So if I only had 1 upstream key, and I wanted to convert this right here to what you guys saw, and I only had 1 key and I had to use the DVE setting, I would have to turn that graphic off and I'd have to turn this on. And so that's the Skycam, and I positioned it to fit perfectly on my still image. And in order to show you that still image, we will drop it in right here. And this key number 4 that's right here on the screen right now, my Skycam Freddy, that's a layer on top of my camera right now, this view. It's also would land on top of this graphic right here. So let's say that I wanted to bring that still image on again. Let's go into the media pool and let's drop that still image right in the same spot, media player 1, that I have this graphic right here, and watch what happens. So now you have it positioned in the top right-hand corner. You guys can still see me, but that still image now fills the whole screen. So if that was the video that I was playing, which had some crazy static, if I brought that video back up, so let's change this graphic back. If I brought my video back up, which is in channel 7, which is my Hyperdeck, so I'll bring that video up. It's paused right now. So I'm going to bring up my channel 7. You're going to lose my picture. I'm going to turn the graphic off. And now I'm going to bring on the DVE. And that starts automatically playing because I have it audio follow video inside my software. So as soon as I activate channel 7, it automatically comes up. So I could go into that key number 4 and change cameras to this camera. I can change cameras in that DVE to this camera. I could also change it to my desktop. And now you can see my software. So, but I had it set to my Skycam, and that's what you saw. I could turn that on and off so you could see what was playing in my video in the back. I was moving my timer around the screen too. I record my intro video in OBS, and I can move that around in the preview screen and then transfer it over to the main program screen. And so there was times where I had this Skycam view on and you couldn't see the timer because at times I had the timer right over this frame. And when I turned this DVE off, this is what was playing on my intro video in the background. So that DVE does that. If I bring the other one on, because remember I have 4, I can bring it back on and it's right here. There it is, the lower thirds down there on the bottom. And then turn this one off and then turn off camera 7, go back to camera 2, and now we're back to my regular view. So I hope that helps a bit, Freddie. It's just the tricks that you learn when you're practicing and using your ATEM every week. And you can do that trick that I just did with the ATEM Mini, the ATEM Mini Pro, and the ATEM Mini Pro ISO. That's what's cool about it. You don't have to have Super Source, which is a feature only available in the high-end consoles, the 2ME from Blackmagic Design, and then now it's been added to the new ATEM Minis, the Extreme, ATEM Mini Extreme, and ATEM Mini Extreme ISO. You can actually do Super Source, which is a whole nother discussion. We're not going to talk about Super Source tonight, but if you have an ATEM Mini, ATEM Mini Pro, ATEM Mini Pro ISO, you can do that trick. You can switch from what's in key number 1, which is that graphic that just disappeared, and then you can change in the DVE settings, the input to a picture-in-picture, and then once that's up there, you can literally move that picture-in-picture. Right now, I can make it bigger or smaller live as we're live. I can move it up and down the screen. But again, I had this perfectly positioned so that I could show that view during my intro video. I'm not going to use it again, so, and I have a macro that pops it on, but it sizes it, and we'll look at that here in a minute. So that's the answer to your question, Freddie. Again, I really do want to do this kind of stuff in the Q&A. So great question. Thank you so much. That's Freddie Ponce, and you can see his question in the live chat. So that's Freddie's question. Audio is excellent. Good to see you again, Freddie. Honored to be here. Thank you, Indy. Appreciate you. ISO is the best part of any ATEM if you're trying to do editing later. Again, I'm recording ISO tracks right now, and I can use every single camera angle that I showed you. So this is what's live in the program view. I don't even have my logo there. So if I wanted to add the logo later and not put it in my live show, then I could actually bring just this camera angle into my editing software, and then I could add a lower thirds like I just did live. I could add that. So let's say that I was watching this back and I didn't like the fact that my logo wasn't there, then I could reproduce this whole video and add the logo, and that's what's great about ISO recording. But an Extreme will record the program out, so you're going to get a good quality recording of what you see on the screen at H.264, and it's a very good file. It records a very high-end H.264 file, really as high as you can get 1080p out of H.264. As long as you have good lighting and good cameras and good lenses, you're going to be able to get a good recording. And again, now you've learned how you can use a polarizer in your live streams to get rid of some of the glare. Even this glare you can see right here, that's from this key light that I use as kind of a hair light, and it's just at an angle that it actually fills up this side of my head, and I can change that, but it'll also affect the monitors behind me. So, okay. Indy also says, stop and think in the stream. True. I probably need to stop and think more in my stream. I get excited. I apologize. I hope that you guys like that part of me. But stopping and thinking in your stream is really important because you're a one-man show producer, and you have lots of little decisions that you need to make, and you need to watch for logos like that when you're changing cameras, especially in a Q&A when you're doing things that you did not plan ahead of time. Q&As are a little bit harder to manage because you may want to completely change what you're showing, and you did not have that on your agenda. Thanks for the comments, Indy. Appreciate it. Looking forward to having the green screen in the studio. So, Camille, one of the things that is true about a Hyperdeck is that because it has a lot of different codecs that you can record to, it is problematic. But once you get used to using a Hyperdeck or the new Studio HD Plus, what you're going to be doing is when you render your videos for your live streams, you're going to render them all the same codec, same frame rate. And I do that every single week for my intro and my outro videos or anything I'm going to show live. All of those go on my discs that go in my Hyperdeck, and you can have the bigger disc if you buy a higher end Studio Hyperdeck. You can also buy the old HD version that was available. And they have the bigger medium that you can use, but you still want to make sure that you have all the same format, 1080p, 29.97 frames a second, ProRes, HQ, 422, all of those have to be codecs the same, and then those files will pop open. And then also when I record in OBS, I always make sure that I do my timer recording, which I do in OBS. I make sure that I have the output set in OBS to 29.97 frames per second as well as 1080p. And then it's really easy. I bring it into Adobe Premiere. I render it at H.264 422. Same frame rate, same size, 1080p and 29.97 frames per second. And then I record those right, I render those right to my disc in my Hyperdeck, and they play great. If you don't render them right in OBS, you will have some issues trying to get them to play in your Hyperdeck. So once you get past that problematic problem, it does give the ability to play motion video inside your live streams, automatically switching to channel 7, and the Hyperdeck will auto roll, which I think is a great feature, but it's not for everybody, and I appreciate that. And so, awesome. Sounds like you sent yours back, and I wish I had mine. It's been on order since the day of the announcement, and I'm still waiting for it to get here. So, okay, so let's go back here. Yes, you can do a Raspberry Pi and play videos into your Hyperdeck. Aaron Parecki on his channel is, and if you saw this, if we'd played to the end of my intro video, you would have saw a still image I'm going to show here in a minute, and talk about some of the YouTube people I look up to. But he actually comes out of his PC now using a Blackmagic Design card that has SDI inputs. I can't think of the name of it right now. It'll come to me. But he can actually now bring that into his matrix. And so he comes right out of his Mac, I think, or his PC, whichever he does. And he has a fill and a key channel coming out of that. And he brings in everything now from his computer. And I know he's used the Raspberry Pi as well. And maybe you have a channel, Camille, and people can learn how to do that. But there are videos on how to use a Raspberry Pi. I do not currently use a Raspberry Pi. I use my Hyperdeck. And computers and all of that really does matter, frame drops. And so if you're trying to just stay away from doing a lot of high-tech stuff while you're live on your PC, which is why I stream directly from my ATEM Mini Extreme ISO. So I can stream directly from it. It converts the video inputs to H.264, and I go directly out into the wild web, right into YouTube from my Extreme ISO. So my PC is really only running the chat and looking at the stream quality, as well as I can use the control software. I also have Mix Effects open on my iPad, and I have the ability to control macros right inside Mix Effect. That way I don't have to reach over here and push a button. I can have it right here on my iPad. So using Mix Effects, it's an app that you can download, available for iOS, Apple, iPhone, iPad, the newer versions, as well as the iPod Touch. But it's not available for the other side, the PC side. Let's see. So Camille, I'm not sure where you are from. If you said that, I apologize, but let us know what country you are from. And I'm sure that, yeah, the Hyperdecks are not very inexpensive. But again, the minis, like the one I've had for a while, they're going to be pretty inexpensive out there pretty soon, because people are going to be replacing hundreds of those. They've been around, I think, for almost 10 years. Those are going to be pretty inexpensive to get. That's perfect for doing motion graphics. It's perfect for doing intro and outro videos. I'm only adding the new Studio Plus because of the monitoring features, headphone features, and some other things that I really like about that Hyperdeck, like the HDMI input. That's great for recording 1080p uncompressed. And that's going to be a great thing for me to be able to have. And then there's other things that's going to make it great as well once I get one. And it sounds like the Raspberry Pi will be around $100. I don't know. I haven't priced those, so I have no idea, Camille. But thanks for joining us tonight. Got lots to add. That's cool. Indy, I'm not sure what that means. What device am I using right now? That was my Extreme ISO, but I could also do that picture-in-picture effect that you see again with my Pro. I'm not feeding my Pro into the live. I'm using my ATEM Mini Pro strictly as a matrix to send the output, the program view to my monitor so I can see what you guys see on my monitor there. And I also can see it on this camera one right here. And I can bring it up on this monitor right here as well, which you can see when I cut to this camera. So I can make this the program out as well. And when I'm sitting on the table, that becomes a program view so I can see what everybody else is seeing. And that makes it a lot easier for me to stream from the table when I have the table set up. Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions. I will drop that link from the Polarizer tonight, so FYI, Indy, so that you'll have that. I'll also drop links to some of the other things that I just showed you, like the SDI to HDMI 3G converter. Again, 3G is used for 1080p. If you're gonna get to 4K, you're gonna have to actually go to SDI 6G converters, and Blackmagic Design sells them as well. And I talk about that in my Hyperdeck series, why you would get, for the old Hyperdeck, why would you buy a 6G converter? You do that because you're coming out of your camera that will have an output of 4K, and you use that HDMI out. You have to convert it to SDI to be able to come in the input in the Hyperdeck. That's the cool thing about the new Hyperdecks coming out, is they have an HDMI input. So a lot of people won't have to buy that converter to come out of their cameras now. They'll just be able to come out of their camera, micro HDMI or mini HDMI, or like Blackmagic Designs have a full-size HDMI output. You'll be able to go right in the back of the Hyperdeck and record at 1080p 264, because that's about the way you can actually go. There's a special 264 that Blackmagic Design has available in the new Hyperdecks, and that will give you a little higher end H.264 recording, a little bit better than the normal H.264, but you'll only be able to probably use that H.264 SDI codec inside DaVinci Resolve from what I've heard. So check that out in the new Hyperdecks that it came out. So Decklink Duo, yeah, that's one of the cards that Matt Simpson said. Thank you, Matt. So it's the Decklink Duo card, and you can actually, inside your PC or your Mac, correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt, you can actually make those SDIs an input or an output, which I think is really cool inside the software. And a lot of churches use that to stream from their Macs. They do all their graphics in their Macs with ProPresenter, and then they come out of their Mac or out of their PC using ProPresenter, just like Aaron Preki is now coming through all web sources for his graphics. And then they come in out of those Decklink cards, SDI out, and they can do fill and key, or key and fill, whichever way you like to say it. I've almost always said it key and fill, but it's reality fill and key. Key being that second channel that you need to cut out the background. So, I'm not sure, Indy, is the Decklink for all the SDI outputs in the PC. Not sure what you're saying there. Okay, so the Raspberry Pi, and again, go to Aaron Preki's channel. In fact, let's do this right now. I have learned so much from Aaron's channel. I want to put this still graphic up. Let's see. I think I have a good macro for this. So let's try this macro right. Is this the one? Nope. Sorry. I'll just do this. Sorry, guys. I can't remember what macro I have here. I didn't name them very good tonight. I'll figure it out here in a minute. But this graphic right here, I'm going to pop up. You're going to lose me for a second, but I'll pop back in again using the DVE. So I'm gone, but now I'm back in right now. So let's move me to the other side here. Make this a little bigger. I'll move myself over here and down a bit. So I have these tall trees on here, and I actually have a better graphic. Let me move myself up to the top. And yes, I'm doing all this stuff with my DVE live, so you guys can see that you can do it as well. So let me go into here. I had a different graphic I wanted to use right now. It's this one. So I look up to so many YouTubers. One of those YouTubers I look up to, I'm going to give a shout out to Aaron Parecki. He knows all about Raspberry Pi and how you use it. You can use it for a video output into your live stream. You would do that coming out of your Mac, or you come out of the Raspberry Pi, I believe, HDMI. He also uses his Apple device. What is that? Apple, those streaming devices. He uses that to bring in an HDMI input into his live streams. So again, so he can broadcast to that using, I think, his iPhone. For a mobile camera, I actually have an HDMI hookup for my mobile cam. So I'm going to hook this up here because I do want to get to the extreme here real quick. So I'm going to turn the chat off for a second and get in here to Filmic Pro. So Aaron Parecki is one of those. I have had links on for his channel before on my live stream, and I will do another one tonight in the chat. But they're like the tall trees in this picture. This is actually the Grove of the Patriarchs. It's on one of the passes right here in Washington, on White Pass. You can look at a map. You can go to these trees. They're gigantic trees. They're protected on three sides by water. So they've this little island that's just kind of an island surrounded by streams and river has never burnt down. And so these giant trees are there. You can go on this path. It's incredible. And it reminds me of these YouTubers like Peter McKinnon that have, over 5 million, I think, subscribers. I'm having trouble getting to 800 on my little channel. And so I look up to these YouTubers. I've learned a lot from their channel. And Aaron Parecki's one of them, here to record. John Barker is really an incredibly intelligent guy. He just had some guys on the stream. There's some new YouTubers coming out right now that I've been listening to. Then there's people I'm just trying to think of all these guys that you can put a shout out tonight to your favorite YouTubers. But again, I want to put some links here below. Jared Undone, that's who I was trying to think of. He has really been impactful, and I've learned a lot on his channel. His videos are very, very thorough. I mean, if you really want to understand products before you buy them. He did a video, I think it came out today, which is not a podcast, he said, but they had a dialogue about the influence that YouTubers have to cause people to go out and buy gear. And I don't want that to be this channel. Don't go buy out like Camille said, don't buy something that makes it harder for you. I'm only sharing my experience with these different items and why I'm purchasing them. I mean, these are thought out. I've been thinking about this decision for a long time. So when I buy a DisplayPort to HDMI adapter, and I bought this through Amazon, I do it strategically now. I do have things I've purchased that was really a waste of money, and they're sitting around a studio not being used. So I'm trying to downstream my equipment and only use things that really, really matter. And I have added new things to my studio because, like these lights, these MC lights over my shoulder right here, I wanted to add some accent to that shelf. And they only last for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how bright you have them, even longer if they're not really bright. But that adds light to my set, and that's really important. If I cut to this camera, I have the bulb version on the shelf back there. Let me turn this DVE off so you guys can see it. But in that shelf in the corner behind the behind that little boat is the bulb. And I apologize, I'm looking the wrong direction, but that right there over my shoulder is the bulb. And that again is an aperture light that I've talked about here on my channel. My last video is an unboxing of that light. And I've added things like that to my studio purposely, guys, so that people can learn about them and decide if it's something that they want to add. And if you want to add something like that, then I would suggest you do it. Those videos that I'm doing on my channel is just to help you make a decision if that's something that you want to add or not. So I want to shout out to these guys because they have made a big impact on my life and their channels. And I'll put some links of some of my favorite YouTubers. I've subscribed to their channel. I try to watch their videos when they come out. And I even attend their live streams as often as I can, and I really do appreciate these guys. So let me show you real quickly my Extreme here. So let me go to this view, and again, I'm changing cameras now, so you guys have a better view. So let's move this picture-in-picture up now. Out of the way, and let me adjust this just a little bit so you can see, should be able to see all of that. So this is my Extreme ISO, and again, you can see right now that I have channel 2 is ready, channel 5 is live. So right now it's using this iPhone camera that I have, and I can hold that up so you guys can see it now. In that view, there I have it. That's the camera I'm using. It comes into channel 5 in my stream tonight. And so you're seeing the picture again on the screen using my camera 1, which is my EOS R. And I just turn this direction and you can see me. I can go into the control software right now and change the input and have this be camera 2. I could even change to my Sky camera, but right now I just want to talk about, so the Extreme really helps me for a couple reasons. Right now I have 2 HDMI outs and I have 2 USB-C outs. So I can have this, pull this back a little bit. I can have this SD card, which I'm recording to right now, ISO recording. I can have that hooked up all the time and just hit record, which is on right now. I'm live on air and I have record on. So I'm recording to that SD drive, but I can also go into a Zoom call without having to unhook things. I used to have to unhook my SD drive and then plug in the webcam version because I use this setup when I'm doing Zoom. So I don't want to have to make those changes. So now I can just open up Zoom. I can choose my ATEM Extreme ISO as my webcam, and I can pick which camera angle I want to be on Zoom with. So if I want this angle or the other angle, I can just switch it up. And I can even do things like this in a Zoom call if I'm doing training. And so I love the 2 USB-Cs out. I also absolutely love the 2 HDMI outs because now I can feed that HDMI 2 to a monitor, and I can go in and switch what I want to go out the HDMI 2 out. So if I'm just getting a camera focused, then I can actually choose that camera to my monitors, and my monitors have the ability to check focus peaking, to check my color. Like right now, I'm not liking this shot that much, but because I wasn't really prepared to talk a long time from this shot. But I just wanted you to see this Extreme's right here. Next to it is my Pro. All the stuff is still on my desk. Here's a close-up of the destroyed ND filter. Let's throw these on the ground right now so it's not in your shot. This came inside one of the HDMI cables. And so there's my SD card. So I have both of these here in the studio, and I'm using this one. I'm feeding the HDMI into channel 1, and then I can come out of the back of this as well. And if I wanted to, I could stream to another source like Facebook at the same time, so I could stream from that one as well as my as well as this one. I'm not tonight. I'm just using this to feed my monitors inside my studio. So I love those two features of the ATEM Mini Extreme. I love the 8 inputs. And so I really want to talk about this. I don't use a lot of the buttons. I don't use the matrix up here to change what I'm setting to the keys. I do occasionally use the macro buttons, which are right here. I don't use the picture-in-picture button. I don't use any of these buttons along here, which are camera controls for Blackmagic cameras. I do turn channel mic inputs on and off. I only mainly use channel 1, and that's what you guys are hearing tonight. So if I killed that right now, the sound would go off. I also come down here and I have to turn on channel 7 to audio follow video, and I shut that down in the middle of our intro video because of that static. And I don't have an ISO recording tonight of that intro. And I'm not going to take the video down, so I apologize for the static if you guys heard it and you watched it live or you watched it recorded. So again, the picture-in-picture that you guys can do with your ATEM Mini, your ATEM Mini Pro, your ATEM Mini Pro ISO, as well as the new Extremes, you can do things like this. And again, you could use your camera as an input in your live streams and have a view like this, and I can show you around my desk. There's my Stream Deck XL. There is my Rodecaster Pro. Here is Mix Effects open. Here is my camera I'm talking on all the time, my key lights, my JBL monitors, and here is the 3 displays I have open right now. Hyperdeck, that's this right here. So if I hit play, that's going to actually roll. And you're going to see the timer clock come on here in just a second. There's the timer. And then I have my multi-view, then I have the stream, and then I can show you back to this little shot of my Extreme ISO. So having both of these gives me the ability to do some things that I wouldn't be able to do with just an Extreme ISO. So I like keeping both of them. I am eventually going to take the Pro and put it in a mobile kit, and I may pull it out when I need it. But the plan is to use it and my old Hyperdeck eventually as a mobile live streaming rig. And again, I may pull things in and out of that. I haven't decided yet. So I just wanted to show you that Extreme here tonight. Cut back to the main camera and logo. And let me unplug my phone here for a second and get back to the chat and see if you guys have any questions that I can answer for you on the Extreme. You can't play video. This is a question from Jacob Thomason. You can't play video on the Extreme. Some of the other decks by Blackmagic Design, sorry, this is in my face now, by Blackmagic Design can do 90 frames of video, but it's not in any of the ATEM Minis. You can only play video if you bring it through a PC or a Macintosh, which you could come out as an input like HDMI out and then play that. You could also purchase a Hyperdeck and play video from it. That's why the Hyperdecks were created by Blackmagic Design. They replaced the old tape decks that everybody used in studios. So if you were a broadcaster in a studio for a TV station, a news station, or whatever, you would use big decks, VHS decks, to be able to do video, or beta decks. Then they came out with digital decks, and that's what a Hyperdeck is. It's a little play deck, and it uses SD cards. The bigger ones use 2 different types of medium. The new Hyperdecks, you can actually come out of one of the USB-C port and record directly to like one of these discs that I have in the studio. And I'll undo this. I use these scan discs. They'll record at 530 megabytes a second, so you can actually edit video from these. You can record directly to them, and now you can actually put files on this and play them on your Hyperdeck, and you should also be able to record directly to one of these scan discs from your Hyperdeck as well. So this one is a 1 terabyte. I also have a 2 terabyte, and I have 4 of these, and I also require clients for big projects to buy one of these so I can put their information on it and then I'll back it up here in the studio, and this would be what I would access their job from. So if I needed any photographs or anything that I shot, any video footage, I would have it right here on their personal Samsung SD drive. And I use these, they've worked great with my ATEM. So you can't play video unless you get a Raspberry Pi and play from it. Play from your PC. You can play video from your phone as well. So I could load in an app on my phone and play video in the middle of my live stream. And people do that as well. Sorry, when I plugged that in, it opened up my files on my PC. So hope that answers your question. That's a great question. But again, if you want to play video in the middle of your live stream, you'll either have to do it from an input coming out of your PC or your Macintosh or from your phone. Like I was just showing you video footage from my phone. I could have played a video as well. You just need to get a player that works and takes over the whole screen so that when you cut to it, you're actually only seeing the video. Okay. Looking at your questions, I'm a one-man band, so I don't pop them up on the screen. I'm just going to answer these, and you guys can see these questions in the chat. Good to see you. Stop and think. I see that you joined us. I think I also said hi to Matt Simpson, but I know I talked about your comment. So in the Raspberry Pi, Matt says, look in the chat that you use the PlayB software, and that emulates a Hyperdeck so that you can play videos through the ATEM software or with Companion. Again, Companion is another app that you can use and create macros, multi-layer macros with your Stream Deck. And I do have a copy of Companion, but I've been mainly just playing macros from my Mix Effect app. So thanks for the info, Matt Simpson. So he has Windows and Mac versions of PlayB, it sounds like. Craig F., thanks for joining me. How did you add a border to your insert screen? I look at my SuperSource Art tab, and the border is grayed out for me. I have an ATEM Mini Extreme ISO. Great question. So I was using my DVE. If I want to put a border around SuperSource, I've got to create a graphic with transparent boxes in, I use Adobe Illustrator. Then I use that, again, I create a PNG file, and I'll put that in the foreground in SuperSource, and I'll have the border. And so I just put then all the inputs behind it, because again, the graphic can be put behind in SuperSource or in front, and that's how you would do that. With the DVE, if you look in your upstream keys, and you have 4 of them, each one of those under the DVE screen, you can add a border. I'll bring on, let's change cameras here real quick. What did I change to? Nothing. I'll change this camera, and I'll bring on this DVE again. What did I do? That is crazy. Sorry. This is really what I want. So you can see the DV's up there, and it's got the border. So let's go into key number 4. And if you have your control software available and your Extreme turned on, you can do this with me or watch it back later. So I'm going to go into key number 4, which is what I'm using for this DVE. So off and on, off and on. And I can show you my desktop here real quick. So I'm going to cut to my desktop. Now this is why you'd use this camera view. Let me switch real quick. So right here under key number 4, which is right here turned on, I'm going to slide this box back size-wise here and move it over out of your way. And so right here, I have the ability to turn the border on or off in my DVE. So I'm not in Luma, I'm not in Chroma, I'm not in Pattern, I'm actually in DVE. And then here's where I can change inputs, and watch what happens when I change to camera 1. If I change to my desktop, you can see this twice. I can also go to my Skycam, but it's off right now. It timed out. I can go to this camera view. So if I go down to DVE, also below that, I have the ability, or above it, sorry, I can turn a shadow on too. So there's actually a shadow on the screen. I have it minimized So let me change the angle of that shadow just a little bit to see if you guys can see it. But anyway, that shadow is on. So I turn shadow off, turn border off, and now you can see the picture-in-picture without a border. I can also make it fly around the screen down here. So if I set a point A and a point B, and then a full size, obviously, point, then I can just choose between run to A, run to B, or run to full. And I'm not gonna do this right now because it'll totally change my DVE in the viewer right now. So I'm gonna change back to camera 2. And I'm going to turn this DVE off. So that's how you turn on borders. So if you have an ATEM Mini, ATEM Mini Pro, ATEM Mini Pro ISO, ATEM Extreme, Extreme ISO, they all have the ability in the upstream keys only to go into the DVE settings and turn this feature on and off. And I believe there's a limit on how many DVEs you can have on at the same time. And one day I will really dive into those limits and do a training video on that. So it's another reason why I like to have a Hyperdeck just in case I need to bring something on screen and I can't do it with a DVE or a picture. I can use my Hyperdeck to bring a picture in on the screen or a lower thirds. Even if it's not motion graphics, I can use my Hyperdeck. And you can do the same thing with a Raspberry Pi. You can do the same thing with your PC. You can do the same thing with a DeckLink card. You just need to have another way to bring a source in once the control software that you have for your particular Extreme or regular Mini, whatever your limits are, because the Minis only have one upstream key, one downstream key, and the Extreme has 4 upstream keys and 2 downstream keys, and that's your limit. And the upstream keys, you can turn on and off and they'll follow the layers, the inputs, and the downstream keys are kind of after the transitions, and you can't even do a preview of those. So you got to pop them on the screen or off the screen. You don't get a preview. So I like to use my upstream keys for my DVE, picture-in-picture, and also bringing graphics in because I want to see the graphic before I put it on the screen. And that's the down part of downstream keys, is you can't really see what's going to go up there. You can look at what you have set up in your inputs. So again, that would be like this. So if I went to my downstream keys here, so let me close my upstream keys. If I went to my downstream keys here, I can see that Media Player 1 is in my downstream key 1, and my Hyperdeck is in my downstream key. But I have no way to get a preview of that in my multi-view. I can have it follow a certain channel. So if I wanted this DVE1 to follow my next cut down here, I would just turn on tie it to that particular channel. And then when I do a transition, it's going to pop on and pop off. And I would do those on air and auto transitions right here, where all these upstream keys I can transition down here and they'll come on and off. The downstream keys, I have to bring those on and off right here or create macros. And again, that's for a whole another video. So I hope that helps you understand how you get the border and how you use your DVEs in the ATEM Minis all the way up to the Extreme ISOs, including the other rack-mounted mixers that have those upstream keys that are available in those as well. So switch back over to camera 2, turn the DVE off, and turn on my graphic again. So great question. I hope this is helping you guys to get some of these questions out there. Kevin Crawley, I don't think I said hi yet. Thanks for joining me. Josh Ash, thanks for joining. I have someone, if someone got an Extreme, would they be upset they didn't get the ISO? That's a great question. I probably skipped a question from Craig. Nope, that's the next question on the screen. So again, that question is, would you be disappointed? Well, here's the deal. If you're doing a lot of video production inside your studio, multiple cameras, and you don't want to record in the camera. Now, if you have a Sony camera, you can put a disc in and hit record. You can have another camera angle, hit record. You can have another camera angle, hit record. But if you came out of your PC into your Extreme without the ISO, then you'd only get that video recording of your PC, right? If you're showing your control software and you're doing a demo, you're only going to get a recording of that if you cut to that channel, right? So let's say camera 1, you have recording. Camera 2, you have recording. Your Sky camera, like I have, you have a disc in and you've hit record. Or a Blackmagic design camera and you're recording it. How are you recording the other inputs? Like when I cut to my iPhone. How are you recording that? I don't have a recording of that unless I hit record inside the Filmic Pro app that would record to my phone. So I could record that. I could probably somehow find a recording piece of equipment to record my desktop, what it's displaying, right? Like I can record, I could hit play on a YouTube video and I can go into my iPhone, swipe down and record what's playing on my iPhone inside my iPhone. That's a feature in an iPhone now. And so again, I've done that, but it's these other things that you bring in that are going to bite you when you don't buy the ISO version. So you really have to ask yourself, are you going to want those different inputs? So I love to record ISO when I'm doing a training video in my studio, have a bunch of different cameras, have my control software open, and I may be working in my control software, but what if later I wanted to show someone what I was doing? My ISO recording would have that input. My PC desktop comes into channel 4 in my Extreme, and I could record that. So later I could go open up the folder that's created. I could take out that particular view, my desktop, and now I could bring that in to the training video because I never thought to cut to that camera. Or if you're doing a live stream like I'm doing right now, and you didn't cut back and you want to re-edit that video or take a piece of that video, edit it and put it up as a training, then you could do that. So again, great question. Only you will know if you're going to be upset if you buy an Extreme and you don't buy the ISO. And it takes up a lot of disk. I had to take a bunch of ISO recordings off of my 1 terabyte disk today and put them on my backup drive because I'm not quite sure if I'm done with those files. It takes up a lot of space. So there's pros and cons, and maybe one of these nights we will do just a pro and con between the Extreme and the Extreme ISO because that is a great topic that could fill a whole night on a live stream. So great question. Talked about the border, talked about Josh Ass. Again, thank you so much for joining us here on the live. DisplayPort to HDMI adapters work great. I use them with HP computers. Cool. So Kevin's using a adapter. I've not used an adapter because I can come right to the back of my monitor from my DisplayPort from my PC. But the challenge is my Hyperdeck new Studio HD Plus, when it arrives, does not have a DisplayPort out. So that's why I had to buy the converter. Let's see here. So Kevin Crawley, Jonas Dottel is the author of the software author Playout B. He is updating all the time. So again, Kevin, I have never gone to his site. So thank you for that shout out. If you want to know about Playout B, there you go. It's in the chat. I've said it live. It is Jonas. I don't know how I pronounce that. I'm going to say Dottel, the author of the software Playout B. So check that out. I'll find it tonight. I'll put it in the links, and one day maybe I'll get a Raspberry Pi and I'll try that feature. I get asked about it a lot lately, especially in chats on my other videos. So cool. Let's go on here. Josh asked, this is a crazy setup, Keith. I have a crazy setup here for sure. David Osler, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you. I appreciate it. I recognize that face. David has a great channel of you like. David, I think if I remember right, you actually have a piano channel and I've listened to it. I've subscribed to it. I think that's your channel. I apologize if it's not. This is a 60-year-old brain, and sometimes it feeds me information that isn't true. So, but a shout out to you for joining me. Hi, how do you get 3 outputs on the one monitor? How do I get 3 outputs on one monitor? Well, BenQ monitors, and there's another monitor, I believe it's by CTAC, or Aaron Parecki, I think, has one. I think John Barker on Here to Record has one. It's a monitor that's designed with 4 inputs. because there's so many people that do editing from more than one computer, the BenQ monitor that I have, it's over $1,000. I don't know if they make a less expensive one. I know Freddie and I have been communicating about BenQ as well. He's here in the chat. He's going to be building his studio up, and we've talked about BenQ. It has 4 inputs, and it can be divided into 4 quadrants, and it's a great question. I've talked about my BenQ monitor here in one of my live streams, so check that out. You'll know that live stream because in the still image, it's got a picture of my BenQ. I've not done a video only on the BenQ. I need to do that on my channel, but I bought it because it's a great video monitor for editing video, coloring, photo editing. I can go to 1 display, so just have an extra display for my laptop. I can go to 2 side by side. So let's say I want to come in from my PC, which is right here. I want to be editing maybe photos on my PC, which would be a separate keyboard and a mouse, which I store on live stream nights. But here is the keyboard hiding under my desk. This sits on my desk all the time in that slot that's in front of my ATEMs. And I bring this out to edit from my PC. And I also have my mouse sitting here right off camera. That's also to my PC. So I could actually be on my PC doing some photographs and then just switch over to my laptop to edit video. And that's really cool because I could be doing a still image on my PC, editing it, leave it open, and then also edit on my laptop. But I mainly use my PC for games. I have my Oculus Rift here, so for 3D gaming for my kids and my family, my grandkids. And I use my PC as a backup. It's actually stronger and faster than my laptop. It's got i9 in it, so does my laptop, but this has got a better video card in it. I have a 2060 in my Asus Duo laptop, which actually has 2 screens on it. And but I have a faster video card. I have the 2080 Ti card inside my 2-year-old now NZXT PC. And so I bring DisplayPort from my PC. I bring HDMI out of my Hyperdeck. I bring in HDMI out of my laptop, and I have all 3 of those screens available because I can switch to a 4-screen mode in my BenQ monitor. The 4th input right now is from my PC. It's not on, but I could have 4 different displays during a live stream. One of them I use to monitor my multi-view. The other one I use to monitor the live stream chat, as well as the speed and how it's doing. And then the 3rd input is my Hyperdeck, so I can see what's queued up. I can also bring audio on the top left quadrant, or if it's full screen, just using it for 1 display, I'll have audio. If it's picture in picture, whatever's on the left gets audio. So I always have my Hyperdeck in the top left quadrant. I'm firing this up so you can see this. I apologize. Got to switch over from the chat to Filmic Pro. And guys, we won't be on too much longer. I want to answer these questions. Nope, I don't need mix effects. I need Filmic Pro. This is me talking to myself. So let me cut to camera 5. What am I? 5? Yeah. So cut to 5. I'll bring up picture in picture here. Sorry, I want this a little bigger and over a bit. Go right here. So, so here is my my ATEM Mini Extreme, and I'm using that right now to go live. I also have my Hyperdeck right here, and then the Hyperdeck goes into that quadrant right there. So I'm going to back up here. So you can see I have 4 quadrants open right now. And if I was to turn on this PC right now, it's firing up. This monitor in a minute is going to come live. This is my main monitor. It's going to ask me for my password. And this is coming up right now. Let me make sure I can push this little puck button, and I can choose what's in these quadrants right here. So if I wanted picture-in-picture mode, I would go right to that. Picture in picture. If I want side by side, left and right, I would go right there. And if I wanted 4 quadrants, which I have right now, now you can see that my NZXT is booting up. So now I have my PC right here. I have my Asus right here. Plus it's where the puck pops open and close to. So I'll minimize this. And if I want volume on my Hyperdeck, I just turn this puck knob and watch the volume level go up and down right there. And so I can hear what's playing in that top quadrant. So that's why I have this monitor. So I have that ability to be able to see all of these things. So again, don't run out and buy the BenQ 32-inch monitor. I have a number of reasons why I have it. It has a number of different color sciences in it. So it's got sRGB, RGB, HDR. It also has Rec 709. And so when you're doing color rendering, color editing of photographs, you need a monitor that actually is true color. It's also something that you would use for a colorist. So you invest the kind of money, not because it has 4 displays on it. You invest the money mainly because the color science. When I did my research and I found out that I could have this for live streaming, I decided to invest in this particular monitor because it has 4 inputs. 1 is HDMI, 2 is HDMI, the 3rd input is DisplayPort, then it has Thunderbolt, and it also has Thunderbolt out. So right now I'm using the Thunderbolt out just to get me a USB to my Hyperdeck. So if I need to do a firmware update to my Hyperdeck, I can actually get another Thunderbolt hub, and I could plug it into that Thunderbolt out, or I could come out to another BenQ monitor out of Thunderbolt if that BenQ monitor that I add has Thunderbolt in. So it's really good. So people use it in studios to come out of their device, Thunderbolt, into it, out again to another display, Thunderbolt, and that way you could come out of the Thunderbolt output of your laptop or your PC and go directly to 2 monitors, and then you would have your HDMI out for projection or whatever else you need your HDMI out. Maybe you didn't want your HDMI out to go into your Extreme ISO or your ATEM Mini. Again, so there's lots of reasons why someone might invest in the BenQ monitor. My number 1 reason was the quality of rendering photos. I am a photographer. I do landscape photography, or if I have a client, I want to make sure when I'm editing those photos, or if I'm editing video, that I get the color that I think I'm getting on the screen is what they're going to see when they get the final product, because monitors change all the time. That's why you have to have a monitor that is set to a certain color science and make sure that the video you shot in your camera is the video that you're seeing on the screen, because then you change the settings, it makes a big difference. So again, we are already into an hour and a half. I'm gonna look here one more time to see if there's any last questions. These questions are great. Thank you guys so much for the Q&A. Questions, so we have things to answer. Can't do it without you. Craig F says, thank you. That was quite annoying to see border, but no access to it. DVE or create a graphic with an outside tool is the answer. So again, yeah, you can create a graphic and lay a DVE on top of it and do whatever you want with it. In SuperSource, you can also do a foreground graphic and create whatever kind of graphic you want. Just remember, if you want the video to come through, you're going to actually have to put that in the foreground and then create PNG cutouts transparent so the video can come through, because it's layers. So awesome. So that answers the 3 outputs. Sorry, David, it's a camera channel, so I apologize. Again, I told you, 60-year-old brain, so he has a camera channel. Check that out. I apologize. Because of that, I will put a link here in the notes to your channel, but thank you so much. So this is what embarrassment looks like when you're live, in case you're wondering. Andy says, I love when it's done live. Okay, guys, I think I covered all the questions. If I did not, please put it in the chat. I would love to answer those. I do think that if you are interested in a video on just the BenQ monitor, let me know. Again, sometimes I do these videos and it doesn't get a lot of views. I've done a lot more lives lately because I've seen the low performance in some of my upload videos. I'm not sure if it's just no one's interested in the Aperture MC lights. I will be doing individual upload videos once I get my new Hyperdeck. I do want to do some videos again on Mix Effects, which is a great app, and how I'm using it. I also want to do a video night live on SuperSource and talk about how to use the foreground and background graphics and set up macros for SuperSource, because again, I think that's a discussion for a night. So if there's any other video on specific things you would like to see, please let me know in the chat. And you can also comment on videos. If I touched on something and you watch that video, please leave in the chat. Keith, I would love to see a whole video on this particular device or this particular topic. I do want this channel to be educational. I want people to come and be able to learn. I want you also to have people visit your channel. So please check out the people in the live streams. Lots of them have video channels. You never know who you're gonna meet, what you're gonna learn. And so if you're passionate about things like photography or live video production, or you'd like to know more about a Raspberry Pi, check out Aaron Precky's channel. Go to John Barker's channel. Go to some of these other channels that are out there, these tall tree YouTubers that I look up to, like the graphics said I do. So, okay, last call for questions. OLED's a good monitor. LED is a good monitor. OLED seems to have a little bit better black and white because it can, the technology, but the technology is changing all the time. What really happens with a monitor, again, this is a question about do you get LED or OLED in a monitor? What I've noticed is the black source, how you get blacks and grayscales and solid blacks, which really affects HDR if you're doing HDR photo editing or HDR video, because the Canon 5D Mark IV can actually shoot HDR. If you don't know what HDR is, there's plenty of videos online for it. I'll just tell you that when your camera takes an exposure, if it's exposing for your face and it's really bright in the background, you're gonna get a blown out background. HDR will take one exposure, possibly for the background, and you can choose that in a camera when you're creating HDR photographs. You could take a number of exposures. I could take an exposure for that TV back there. I could take an exposure for the shades. I could take an exposure for this monitor, an exposure for my face. I could bring it into HDR editing photo software. Mostly it's HDR photo software, and then put them all together, and it will give me a great look on everything. That's not going to change your focus. It's not for changing focus. So if you don't have the background in focus on your camera, it's not going to work. So most people that use HDR are shooting at a real, like a f8 or f9 or f10 in their aperture, so that they get a real good focus depth of field. And then you put the different exposures together, which is how much everything's exposed. And again, my camera is exposing for me and my skin tones, and whatever's back there is back there. I have to light the background to get the right exposure. So, and then again, HDR editing can be done in video as well. And that's why you may want to have a monitor that gives you really good blacks and grays. And these higher end monitors do that. There's even an HDR setting. If I was editing an HDR photo and I want to see what that's going to look like in my screen, I'll turn that on, and it completely changes the black and contrast range. And there's no reason to use it unless you're doing HDR specific editing. And so you can check out the BenQ 38.2-inch monitor. This has been out for a couple of years. And again, they're over $1,000, and you can find them on Amazon. And I'll put a link in the description below. So again, None of these videos are sponsored. None of the videos on my channel so far have been sponsored. I've paid for all this equipment myself. And just FYI, I've learned from so many people out there in social media. So, guys, I think that we have covered all the questions. Kevin Crawley says, take a look at the LG OLED 48CX as a monitor. Has 120 refresh rate. And again, so those are zones that's how fast it refreshes, which is great for gaming. My son has a 240 hertz refresh rate gaming monitor. So that's great for video production as well, because it's refreshing. You're getting good crisp images, especially if you're doing something like high speed, high frame rates. So check out those monitors again. And I appreciate that input. So the monitors that I use are old studio monitors. They're JBL. They're designed for audio recording. What does that mean? That a lot of monitors have a built-in EQ, so they might have a little bump in the warm area for like music, and that's the way a lot of home speakers are. Studio monitors are designed to be flat. I don't get a lot of audiophiles or people that are recording bands or anything on my channel now, so I don't talk lots of depth about audio. But these are the monitors that I had in my professional recording studio in my old house. I've recorded albums and bands and things like that. One day I'll post a video on here and you guys can see some of those recordings. I've done music videos. All the music was recorded before in my studio. Once it was done and mastered on these speakers, I was able then to use that on a speaker at the event when we were shooting the video. So the artist was lip syncing directly to his music, tapping his foot to his music, and he was playing his guitar, which was not mic'd to the music, and that's what gets everything in sync. So you can buy those monitors. They come in a 6-inch version, an 8-inch version. There's new versions of these now. So if you just go to like any of the major YouTube places that sell audio equipment, then like Guitar Store, and you look for studio monitors, there'll be a number of JBL monitors that are high end, and you can watch videos on those. And I have a subwoofer here on the floor as well, and that gives me the lows. So when you're mixing music, especially rap music, you need to hear the low end. So sometimes you'll listen just to the low end with these speakers off, and they have a button to do that. I can turn the sub on and off with a button. I have a remote control I don't have out right now that I can change that right in the middle of recording. And so they're just really good quality studio speakers, and I have them on stands inside my studio, and those stands sit behind my desk in a closet right here in the studio. And I'm actually using a packing blanket as soundproofing behind it. It's just hanging in the back of my studio, and I have it back there to cut down on some of the sound behind those speakers. That's really all the treatment I have in here, except for one panel here over by my TV. And you can see that right here. It's white right there. That's a white sound panel. I had a bunch of those that I built for my recording studio, and I've sold all of them except for 4 or 5 that I keep around. I just don't do any recording of bands anymore in my studio, so I really don't need them. So, but if you're going to use a condenser mic, you definitely need to soundproof your room. Here's the difference between my Shure SM7B, which is a dynamic microphone. It doesn't pick up a lot of room noise. This is my microphone right here. I have it on camera, and it picks up a lot of room noise. And I have it going through my Rodecaster Pro. I even have things set like de-essing on here, some compression. I have some limiting going on, mainly just to gate out room noise. And so those frequencies and sounds are limited, and they come back on when I'm talking, but they go off when I'm quiet. So it's literally and that's true with this microphone, but I get a lot more from that mic. So it's now muted, and now I'm back to my Shure SM7B, and that's the that's the NTG3 by Rode, and I've had it for a bunch of years. It's what I use on a boom pole when I'm doing a live shoot. I've used it as an overhead for talking headshots when they don't want to wear a lapel mic. But again, that's why you would want to have room treatment, because all of those reflections, sound bouncing off walls gets worse when you have a condenser microphone. So guys, that's kind of it for tonight. The Q&A was great. I'll look at the questions real quick and snap a shot of them, and I'll try to answer those in the chat later if I missed any. But again, thank you for tuning in to Tuesday Nights Live here, 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, Life Journey Production Studios. My name is Keith. Before we run the outro video, I just want to say thank you for all those new people that came on tonight. I hope you'll subscribe and like the channel. And I hope you'll just look at the videos. There's lots of training on my site, lots of products that I take a look at. And I hope that you'll enjoy the channel here as well as these live streams. So again, thank you guys so much for making this a success tonight. The questions were amazing, and I'll do my best to put those links before the night's out on the video once it posts up there. And also Amazon affiliate links, and if you do use those, you don't pay more, but it does support the channel. And we'll get the green screen out as soon as the poll gets here. You never know. Tuesday, we may have a green screen behind us, and I may be messing around with the Unreal Engine for some backgrounds. We'll see next Tuesday, so make sure you tune in. Until then, again, Life Journey Production Studio, this is Keith. Thank you. Thank you for all of the nice info tonight and nice help tonight from you guys that know some of these things that I don't use. So good. See you guys next week. Thanks a lot. Going to use Mix Effects by Adam Tao on my iPad. And I'm going to roll the outro video right now. It's right here. It says outro.